Hey there. So I had a few people ask me about traveling to Cuba in order to dance, and because I'm very lazy and I'm also thinking that I'm very smart, I'm just gonna make a video instead so I can put it online and that I don't have to have the same conversation with seven people all over again, and also that it's easier for you to get to the information to even watch it again, because it's also really annoying if you ask people to repeat what they say all the time. So I guess it's easier for all of us. Of course, if you have more questions after you watch this, you are very welcome to come up to me and ask personally. But so this is mostly for my students who ask about going to Havana or to Cuba to dance. Now, just as on an introductory note, I think it is a very good idea to do so. Now, in many ways, and I will talk about this more later, also going to Cuba to dance is not as much of a dance heaven as you would imagine. Especially if you haven't been before, you imagine all kinds of things, and in most cases, being there might not exactly match your expectations, but in other ways it will. And first of all, just to answer the question, should you do it? Should you travel to Cuba to dance? If you're a salsa dancer and you want to develop your dancing, my answer to that is yes. And the main reason for that is actually not because there is so much more opportunity to dance. However, in order to understand Cuban salsa dance as it is danced today with all its elements, meaning like the folkloric elements in it, the rumba, all the history, it's kind of a good idea to see where it's coming from. I mean, this would be the case with anything you learn. You can't really understand it unless you understand its roots. So this is why I'd highly recommend you to go there to see the dancing in its cultural and religious context even. This will give you so much more depth of understanding of what it's actually like, what Cuban dance is actually supposed to be like. You see it in the people, the way they dance it, the way they interact, especially if we talk about things like Rumba Wawanko. You'll be able to see people dance salsa ton on the street. You'll just get a feeling for why Cuban dance has such a rich context. Okay, so my quick answer to should I go to Cuba to dance is yes, and the main reason to do so is because in order to understand something completely, you have to understand its background. You know, it's the same in, let's say, psychoanalysis. The assumption is you can't really understand the suffering of a patient or a person in the now unless you understand the history, especially if they've undergone like a difficult past. So you have to know what it is that you're dealing with in front of you right now, and that usually happens by you looking at what has happened in the past, right? Just as a little metaphor. Now, the second reason is, obviously, you will be able, as a foreigner, to take classes in Cuba, which are much cheaper than if you would take classes from comparably good dancers here in Europe. Why? Because, I mean, Cuba has a rather difficult economic situations for its citizens, which means that they're always on the lookout to make money. Also, dance or like culture is one of their, if not almost the only export. You also think obviously about rum and cigars, but almost everyone knows how to dance in Havana, and I'll talk about this, or in Cuba, talk about this more later. And almost everyone is theoretically a dance teacher. I'll add a caveat, they're not, but I'll tell you more about that later too. So it's a really good idea to go there and take classes from people who've actually learned that which you're trying to learn here in a organized manner. You know, like there's schools for that, there's universities. There is Conjunto Folclórico, which is teaching people how to dance Afro, and which is putting shows on where people learn folklore dances. Afro being kind of like the commercialized European term. So if you want to learn these kind of things, you're very well advised to do it in Cuba, because these are the people who actually know what to do, right? If you want to learn a ballet, you're going to go to a ballet dancer, not to somebody who started dancing ballet when they were 30 and is taking like classes 3 hours per week. Maybe they're a great teacher, I don't know. But generally speaking, you want to do that, yeah? So, should you go to Cuba to dance and to improve your salsa dancing? Yes, definitely. I think this is just my personal opinion. If you're not wanting just a holiday anyway, and you think, okay, I'm gonna spend these 1 week or 2 weeks in Cuba and learn how to dance, I would also say this is not enough. And in terms of dancing value, the amount of improvement you will get in your dancing if you take this kind of like little holiday is comparably to when you would allocate the same resources somewhere in Europe. Okay, what do I mean by that? I mean, I'm obsessed with obtaining a skill, dancing. I don't care about holidays and so forth. I know maybe you might, other people do, but if I'm talking about going to Cuba to dance, I'm thinking in terms of total dance value, total value received in dance education or skill building. Now, the flights there are pricey. Being there as a tourist for 2 weeks is not the cheapest thing either. So if you just do that, then there might be similarly good ways to get the same amount of dance education in Europe for the same amount of money. If you go to salsa congresses, for example, if you just take time off your job and you actually practice for 4 hours a day, you calculate that in money value, again, you might be able to achieve the same results. You know, if you actually sit down and study with YouTube videos and so forth, or with a proper or somebody who knows what they're doing in your home city, you can easily achieve the same results. No questions about it. If you go 2 weeks, and my personal opinion is that going to Cuba for dancing for 2 weeks is still good. You know, do it sometime because of the other benefit I mentioned before, being experiencing Cuban salsa and Cuban dance in its cultural context, yes, but if it's just for the dancing, I don't know. So just so you know that, as on a side note, you should go definitely, but it's not so much above the alternative in terms of becoming a better dancer, okay?